Good evening. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Waterville City Council. We are here in person, and if anybody wants to stop down, you can come to Waterville High School. We're out back. Also, looks like probably a lot of you are going to be joining us online. Before we get started, I will ask everybody to stand and we'll say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, look at that. Did you see those graphics? That's pretty awesome.
It's getting high tech.
Totally.
Starting to figure this out.
Okay. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Is there anybody on the City Council who feels they'll have a conflict of interest with any of the votes they will take tonight? Seeing as none, we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Could I get a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I think we still need to do a roll
Do a
call.
roll
because-
call.
Yeah.
Virtual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
sorry.
Whoa.
Councilor Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councilor Smith,
Dad, we're going to the store, right? Or do you have to listen to this?
Councilor Smith,
We need to go to the store. Yeah, no.
You are, what's your vote on the consent agenda, Mayor?
Greg Bazakis, put yourself on mute, my friend.
Councilor Smith,
Yes.
Councilor Mayu,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Unfinished business ordinance 134, 2020.
I'm going to make a motion to take all of the items on the agenda by title only.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Nice.
Oh, we need a roll call.
Yeah, we'll do a roll call. Councilor Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councilor Smith,
Yes.
Councilor Mayu,
Yes.
Councilor Foss.
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0
I don't think they're
opposed.
doing anything yet. No.
Ordinance
Okay.
134,
134, 2020.
an ordinance providing for amendment to zoning.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there discussion?
You want to just
I'm
sum up?
afraid that didn't come across. Would you have Patty read that again, please?
Yes.
It's ordinance 134, amendment to zoning.
And this is unfinished business from last time.
Okay. We'll take a roll call.
Councilor Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councilor Smith,
Yes.
Councilor Mayu,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on, order 140, 2020.
An order providing for the issuance of general obligation bonds in the amount of $4,035,000 for capital projects.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to add an amendment to this to add back in the $250,000 for the firearm range for the police department.
Is there a second?
Second.
Open discussion on this item.
So, sorry. So I've had some time to talk with Chief and my own experiences with training in general. Police department needs an area to train in consistently, not once a year or once here and there. They need to be able to get that muscle memory into their bodies and react to a situation that they encounter. And in doing that, using this firearm range is going to give them that ability to react accordingly to whatever situation they come in contact with. I've toured the firearm range. I've talked to Chief Massey extensively about how we're doing this. Sound level testing has taken place. My own knowledge of sound levels, it is well within spec for what he had at the time, and now he's added even more berm to the area. So if anybody in the surrounding area is worried about noise or excessive noise from that area, I can assure you that the numbers that were tested before the berm was put up are extraordinary. But more importantly, this would give the police department.
Rick, come on.
Excuse me?
I think it's just
I
somebody
think this is
talking.
Greg.
I thought I heard Rick, so. But anyways, that's my stance on why we should be funding this in this bond is, the police need a place of their own to do their training effectively. And I've listened to what Winslow Range, yes, it's been great for them, place to train, but not to the caliber that Chief has laid out for this for the new place. What I'd be looking for down the road is to optionally, as long as everything falls into place, be able to open it up to the public with a membership fee. I don't know what that looks like right now, but at least we could recapture some of that revenue, some of that money spent going forward. As long as the numbers worked right, great. But if not, then so be it. But that's why I'm in favor of this.
I just have a question.
Can we mute anyone who's not a counselor?
Right, can we mute, that's Eric's phone.
PM, SAK, Women Kyle, University, 1995, 1985, 81795, 81795.
Sounds better.
That sounds a lot better.
Yep.
Thank you, Patty.
Yeah.
Are we throwing you a welcome back party, Patty? We'll do it the same time we do your going away party.
Okay,
So, yeah, I just have a question. Like, I don't have any issues with the range at all, and I'm happy to put the money back in here. I guess I'm trying to understand is, what is the total cost? So, 100,000 last year, 250 this year. Does that give you a finished product? Like, what's the end game to make this a range that's useful, beyond what, you're looking to do now, and just, a bunch of hills with some sound testing and things like that? What's the overall scope of that? Yeah, that's fine.
Use that mic.
I think it was already on.
it doesn't really
All right.
amplify your voice.
No, yeah.
I had the city engineer come up with some rough estimates of what it would cost. And if an outside contractor was to do the whole complete project from start to finish, he estimates that to be about $340,000. If in fact Public Works can do either all of the project or part of it, to reduce that cost. If Public Works could do all of it, we don't think they can, it would be about $142,000. But there's just some large equipment that's needed, large bulldozers, and really an expertise on how to use them. We think Public Works should come in and do a lot of the finish work for the range. So definitely with that $350,000, we could complete that range.
So, there's no structure, like when you came the first year for the 100,000, we had the, and I'm assuming it's still in the same location. There was a big thing that we showed you guys are shooting this way, and we're going to do this, and is there any, like, I know that there was talk for like maybe, or, hopes for like buildings and things of that nature. Does any of that money, is there any of that, or is this literally just to create enough hill of a berm so that you guys can fire into it and you guys can set up things to do all outdoor stuff? I mean, I know most of the things are gonna be outdoor, but I know that, like for a meeting room to go ahead and decipher things that happened, or, whatever, debriefing, or whatever you wanna call it. Is that part of this initial plan, or is that, plan two?
Well, we're hoping that if we don't spend the whole $350,000, we can put a structure on it. Because it'll be a simple rectangular structure, do some classrooms, some storage and that
Right.
type of things. That can come after if
Yeah,
we have
okay.
to do that. But we're hoping if we have enough money left over that we could in fact put that structure up there. That's really the only other piece of the project. The rest of it is all the range itself. As you know, we had I don't know how many yards, probably two, I'm not sure how many yards, that we had hauled in from some of the construction projects around the city,
Yep.
including the Colby construction for the athletic field, that they were good enough to haul all that fill down there. And we were able to get a berm on the north side of the pool, so we'll be shooting north, about 30 feet high, which is what's recommended.
Yeah.
And of course, then it has some natural berms on the east side, which is the side that faces the West River Road. And then, of course, on the opposite side is the river.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to get at, like a picture in my head, like at the end game, like 100,000 this year, 250 this year, like as this thing evolves, then, we're now 6-7 years down the thing, and now we've got, 900,000, $1.2 million range, which that's great. Like, I'm just trying to see what the end game is. Like, what at the end of the day, if you could have everything that you wanted to make this range what it was, what's that cost going to be?
Right.
Instead of just coming out and saying, okay, well, 250, 150, now another 130, we're going to do this and this. I mean, I get it, but I'm just trying to see, like, overall end game from field to finish, if we have a plan and what that
Well, as I
costs.
said before, we've been trying to develop or get a range for the
Yeah.
last several years. And 4 or 5 years ago, we decided that the only city-owned property that was feasible for that were the pools on the West River Road.
Right.
And so from that point on, we started to look where we could get fill, free fill. We had the city engineer at that time estimate at what it would cost to bring in all that fill if we paid for it, based on the height and the length and the width that you need. And he estimated back then at about $350,000 if we had to pay for all that fill to be hauled in. We had it all hauled in for nothing. So we saved all that money. The first money that we had to dedicate towards the range was last year's bonding of $100,000.
Right.
We spent about $18,000 in engineering fee from Ransom Engineering Firm. But that came out of forfeiture money. And we wanted to keep the whole $100,000 to actually use towards the project. So the additional $250 that we would get was well within the estimate of what the city engineer came up with for a rough estimate just last week. So we think we could finish that project.
Okay.
Including your classroom and your Connex box?
Well, I'm hoping that we could finish the classroom. Again, that's kind of a rough estimate, so,
Yep.
if we obviously came in at 300 or 325, we'd probably have enough to construct that building. Again, a rectangular building, nothing fancy, just to have classroom and hold, and some storage area.
Chief, how many days a year do you think there will be training going on at the range?
For us, we train about 6 days of mandatory training, and then the officers shoot as often as they can, and they'll shoot more often if we have our own range. You got to remember that firearms skills are very perishable. If you don't keep them up, you lose them. And as I said many, many times, we do a lot of dynamic shooting, a lot of tactical shooting. We use stacking, we use rescue techniques to bring back an officer who's been shot or injured, or a civilian. Obviously dynamic entries. And so we need a much bigger area than what the Winslow Range provides for us. And again, we don't have access during the wintertime for the Winslow Range, but if we hire someone in January, February, we got
Where do you currently go to do the kind of training that you can't do in Winslow, or do you just not do it?
well, we are doing it in Winslow, but it's very difficult, and it's downsized, and some of the training that we want to do, we actually aren't doing because it's just not quite big enough. Some of it is actually erecting barriers so that we can shoot around corners, we can simulate going down hallways, clearing rooms, and all those types of things that make it very difficult when you have to tear everything down because it's not our range and then set it back up, and that takes time. And of course, to get all our people qualified, we work 24/7, so there's people at night that are shooting. We do night firing.
Other than Winslow, what municipalities around here have their own range for their police department?
I don't know of, maybe Scarborough. Augusta uses Capitol Range. I don't think there's any police department north of Waterville that has a range.
So where would you, if the council was to say no, where would you go to do the training? And if Winslow no longer became an option, have you looked into what your options would be for where you could go to do this kind of training?
I'm not sure. I have not, but our options certainly would be limited. We could see what they would cost if in fact the Capitol Range would even consider taking us on.
I mean, here's my concern. You know, we talked about this last year, and last year we put $100,000 in the bond to invest in the range. Correct me if somebody who was there, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember ever discussing any additional, that we were going to need more than the 100,000. And so we're going to take, did we?
My recollection is that when the chief asked for the initial funds, it was to get certain things started, and it was a pretty rough outline of some beginning stages.
Right, and so maybe I misremember it was, but my concern is we're taking something that currently is costing us $600 a year and turning it into if we just stayed at the 100 from last year and the additional 250 this year, we're turning it into a $20,000 a year expense for the next 20 years.
Right.
When we have a fire department that's in need of repair, and a library we're just kept catching up on, and public works equipment that we're trying to catch up on. So I'm not opposed to it, but in my mind I'm trying to justify making this, you know, taking something that's only costing us $600 and turning it into, you know, an expense that's much more than that.
Can I comment, Chief?
Yeah.
I would justify it by saying that there's no police department in the area that trains like the Waterville PD. And even when surrounding towns, when our folks have gotten called into active shooter situations, there's nobody that understands how to navigate those the way the Waterville PD does, specifically because of the way the chief has worked over the years to train them. And I think when we're talking about the fact that these guys do go into active shooter situations, and they're putting their life on the line, I think that's the justification, is to make sure they're as best and highly trained as possible.
I guess my question would be, for $20,000, could we just afford to pay to send them to a good facility where they can do that kind of training, rather than, or for some amount less than $20,000 a year? I mean, what would it cost us to just pay the expenses to send you to some place where you can do the kind of training you want to do?
Well, there's no substitute for training when it comes to firearms. It exposes us to the most liability, not to mention someone getting hurt or someone getting killed. And the type of training that we need for our community, I think we need our own range, a much larger range, and one that we can do the full scope of training that we really need to do. Depending on where we would go, if this range is not constructed, I'm not sure where we would go, but again, we're talking 24/7, people working nights. Are they going to have to travel an hour 2 hours. You know, a lot of that obviously is overtime costs for us to train all the folks as many times as we do a year. So it'd be, you know, be significant, but, and difficult for us to do that. Yes.
Is training in Augusta not an option anymore?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Training in Augusta, is that not an option anymore?
The Capitol, wherever the Augusta,
Could we train there?
wherever the Augusta
Yeah.
Police Department is going, I guess.
Well, I'm not sure. I would have to contact them and ask them if in fact they would allow us to use that for our training. How many times a year could we use it? It's open to the public. Would it be difficult scheduling for us? Could we get the amount of time and scheduling that we need? And then, of course, what the cost is. And again, it's a 40-mile round trip to go ahead and train our folks. So logistically, not good.
Well, and I do think we should keep in mind just the long-term prospects of, even if it's several years down the road, of being able to partner with the community and gun clubs and things like that to perhaps help with this.
This
But-
gets, I'm sorry, Mr.
Sid.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, like Council Foss, I want to reiterate my support to put this back in because I have a godson that's been on the Skowhegan Police Department for a while. And I hear the stories about domestic violence on a first-hand basis because he visits with me quite often. And I can't tell you, you know, like Chief Massey said, this training in a modern-day firearm range is so necessary during the days that we are looking ahead to. We live in an